Welcome, everybody. Thank you for joining today's session. Today, we're going to be focused on what you need to know about GA4 360 pricing. We're going to start out with some quick intros. My name is Brad Prenger. I'm based here in Cincinnati, Ohio. I lead our partnerships team at Infotrust. My job is to work with many of you, our clients, potential clients, on really understanding the landscape of what's happening with Google Analytics 4, how we can help as a partner, and really understand your pain points, your needs. And we're excited about this session because I believe this is Amin and I's fourth, fifth webinar on GA4, and we expect many more to come. But our job as Infotrust, as a leader in the space, to continue to educate all of you on what's happening with Google, why we're excited, and what you need to know as an advertiser in your space. So excited about today's conversation. Amin, I'll pass it over to you for an introduction.
Sure. Thank you, Brad. Hello, everyone. I am the Senior VP of Delivery at Infotrust. I oversee our client partner execution team. So a little bit more on the ground with deploying digital analytics strategies and implementations, particularly with GA4 migration. So across all of our industry teams and technology teams, I've been working a lot with many of you and our other partners on the actual deployment of GA4. So excited to be here.
All right, let's get into it. So quick background for everybody. I know as much as I would love everybody to know who Infotrust is and what we do, I wanted to provide a quick background on why we're presenting this webinar. First and foremost, we're one of Google's longest standing premier partners, meaning we have direct lines with Google product teams. We've been working with them for several years on Google Analytics 4, sharing feedback from our clients, feedback from our technical teams, giving them the good, the bad, where we think there is opportunity. And we're excited. Even the last time we prepared and presented a webinar, there's been so much transition on Google Analytics 4 from an educational standpoint, from a feature parity standpoint. So we're excited to kind of jump into the pricing piece today. But a couple more things on us. Not only are we an end-to-end digital analytics consultancy, but we also focus very much on privacy and governance. As all of you, GA4 is a hot button, server side, privacy, first-party data collection. Those are the big spaces that we're helping our clients in today. We don't sell media, so we want to be very focused on specializing in end-to-end, helping you advance your analytics maturity. So that's where we come in. That's our niche, is helping our clients get from point A to point B much faster, especially as things continue to change. Cookies going away is another one that I know organizations are thinking through as we speak. And we partner with many organizations. So again, today's very tactical, I would say, focused around updates, refreshers on GA4, how the pricing model works. Ultimately, at the end of the day, this is a short webinar to give you what you need to know, but we'd love to have a follow-up conversation with you to speak specifically to your business, provide a little bit more of a tailored approach around what your package would look like and what's important. So excited to get started today. Here's the agenda or the focus for the next 25 minutes. Refresher on Google Analytics 4, why we're excited, migration timeline, key reminders on the sunset. Amin is going to walk us through that section. We're going to go into the GA4 enterprise pricing, give you some ideas of what's changed, what's a little bit different, what's unique, what's good, how to successfully transition to Google Analytics 4. This is a very hot topic, so it's important to understand the pricing model and the package, but it's really important to start thinking, if you haven't already, hopefully you have, of what is your migration plan to move over to Google Analytics 4 successfully before some of the deprecation happening later next year. And then we wanted to add in some tips. You know, we are a Google partner. We can resell the licenses. We can provide analytics, governance, privacy support. But at the end of the day, we want to make sure you choose the right partner for you. So we would love to work with you, but if you are choosing a partner, we wanted to provide some best practices or things you should think about in your checklist of what is really important, not just the package of the license, but all of the other things you need to be considering. Because a license is one thing. What's even more important is making sure your organization is driving ROI from your investment in Google, and how do you connect it with the rest of your ecosystem. So that's the focus for today. I will pass it over to Amin to get us started on a refresher of GA4. Amin, over to you.
Thank you, Brad. I will just spend a couple minutes because we have a plethora of content on our website, and I know for many of the partners on the call that we work with already, it's been the topic of almost every conversation. But as a general refresher of why GA4, why Google invested in this net new platform, if you will, it's to solve some really big challenges with limited view across different platforms, predictive analytics capabilities not really being built into a tool. It's often heavy workload to export your data, run some models, have some predictive audiences created and then pumped back into the tools, kind of streamlining a lot of that process right into the tool, better visibility into the customer journey, and then of course, activating on your media, all while protecting user privacy. This is just a very high level summary of the key areas that we see the value of GA4 and the power that can come with it, and also why Google's invested so much into this platform and getting partners to adopt it and migrate to it. So these are the key areas, the challenges and solutions that GA4 provides. Again, for more nitty gritty or details, we have content around that on our website. But we wanted to kind of refresh with that high level of the value. Also sharing a little bit of the journey that Google has gone through with their analytics products. Again, I'm going to just touch a little bit more on the right side here, where we are today. Google Analytics 4 was actually launched a couple of years ago. It was called App Plus Web, particularly to unify different devices or platforms and the measurement model to be event-based, which allows a lot of the things that I mentioned in the previous slide to be unlocked, like predictive capabilities, better media activation, et cetera. Where we are right now between all the regulations happening in the industry and technology shifts by various browsers and the internet, GA4 is well positioned to be that analytics platform moving forward. But we're very much in that transition period. So it was officially launched out of beta a year or two ago. Some announcements on UA sunsetting, which I'll talk about in the next slide, happened earlier this year and goes into next year. So that by the end of next year, the idea is that GA4 is the only analytics platform that Google is supporting. UA will be officially deprecated or sunset. And then also the timing there coincides with the third-party cookie deprecation as well. So this is where we are. This is the right time to start thinking about an enterprise license. If you have one today, but it's not GA4 360 switching, or if you're considering GA4 360, what are those implications? Now's the right time as we're entering kind of the final year, which we'll talk about here in the next slide. Some of the key points.
Yes, and one thing I would just add, Amin, on this is I think it's really important to talk about some of these milestones, right? As you think about privacy laws and regulations, CCPA, GDPR, cookies ultimately going away from the Chrome browser in the future. What we're seeing our clients, and especially the ones that are thinking ahead, is taking this opportunity. Yes, the transition to GA4 may seem stressful, it may seem overwhelming, it's different, but the opportunity it brings your organization is a time to almost reset and look at your infrastructure, look at what you're collecting data on, and really redefine those metrics that are going to drive your business and really help you have a competitive advantage. So it's a little bit of a cleanup that we're seeing a lot of organizations going through to say, wow, all of this stuff we collected in Universal Analytics, is this now the time to think about what is actually being used? What does that reporting look like, et cetera? So I just thought, keep that in mind. I know all of you are here to talk about GA4 pricing and the packages, but just think through as you're going to your organization saying, I need more resources to make this migration happen, make sure you're thinking about the other things to set your organization up for the future.
Yeah, I'll add to that before I kind of go into these details here. Just from what I'm seeing working with our clients in the execution and the deployment of GA4, it's been very exciting and refreshing where organizations are like, okay, we can maybe clean up and have a better model, because historically we've added and added on top of our many analytics implementations and people have come and go, and there's historical, let's start fresh. Let's do a clean implementation, pull in what we need to, or make sure we track the critical items we've been tracking for year-over-year analysis, but also that assessment of what's really going to move the needle or not for the business and focus on those key areas. A lot of our clients and partners are excited about that kind of fresh slate, if you will. So Good point, Brad. I'm glad you jumped in with that. So, okay, things you should know. I'm going to go quickly through these because we presented this a couple months ago. So again, this is more of a refresher, but some key dates and why, again, now is the time to really consider GA4 360 or the enterprise version, particularly because we are less than a year out from processing of universal analytics ending or being sunset. So for free universal analytics properties, that'll be in July 2023. For 360 current 360 customers on based on their universal analytics properties, that'll be October of 2023. That's only a month or two away from being a year out for those 360 customers. Processing will stop in July or October, but the UI will still be available for up to 6 months later. So you can still access your universal analytics properties to look at the historical data, maybe export them out, do some analysis, but processing new data coming into those universal properties will not continue past those dates. And there is no migration of historical data. I think many of you probably know this by now. This is why we pushed dual tagging so heavily, because there is no way to move the universal analytics data, plop it into the GA4 properties, because the models are different. With GA4, it's event-based. But there are exporting and preserving your historical data options. Brad will talk about that a little bit later, and we're doing a lot of that with our current partners today. GA4 needs to be dual tagged as soon as possible. Literally, this is an outdated bullet point, intentionally not updated, because at the very least, we recommend starting your dual tagging in June of 2022. That was a couple months ago for year-over-year analysis, particularly for the UA free properties. If you're on UA 360, you're still a month or two out from that end date of processing stopping, but we should be well past that to get GA4 dual tagged for at least the critical elements, and at this point, just enhancing and adding those additional KPIs and metrics you want to capture. This bullet here, as Brad mentioned, has had many changes. Product features have been rolled out, enhancements by Google. We can kind of share details separate here on specifics, but the product is rapidly evolving. Google has an army of engineers improving it. We know there are still some things not fully at parity or available today, but by those end dates, I'm confident the critical features Google will continue with will be in place. So, other key data point or things you should know: downstream systems and dashboards need to be rebuilt because it is a universal analytics properties are completely separate from GA4 properties. The data source is separate. So any of your current systems that rely on universal analytics properties and data, they need to be maybe not rebuilt, but relinked to your GA4 properties, but likely changed because the metrics and dimensions and model is different. So your reporting will need to be rethought and potentially updated. We have a webinar on this, so shameless plug to that. A key point that I want to emphasize, particularly for any of our existing clients on this webinar, if you have GA360 today and you're deploying and you've created your GA4 properties to dual tag, you can upgrade your GA4 properties today to 360 at no cost. Google will not charge you twice for Universal Analytics 360 hits and GA4 360 events. You can upgrade your GA4 properties to 360 to obtain those features side by side. And when you switch your license to be based on GA4 360 or GA4 events, you would only pay for GA4 events, but maintain UA 360 features for up to 6 months, which I think is actually the next, or no, it's in there, yes. So the summary here is if you have Universal Analytics 360 today and GA4 properties, upgrade them to 360. That's at no additional cost. You can reap the benefits of those additional features. Lastly, privacy features were rolled out earlier this year. The first time we presented this slide, they were rolling out. Then a couple weeks later, rolled out and will continuously be developed and deployed. These are just a couple that were deployed by Google. And we have some articles that go deeper into those. But those are key features that I think are important when considering GA4 and moving to GA4 360. So with that, I think we might be at the midpoint. Actually, that's pretty good. We wanted to launch a poll out of interest to see where you all are with your GA4 deployment. Is it ready for prime time? However you want to define prime time, up to you. I'll go ahead and launch that poll and give it about 30 seconds or so for people to reply if you can. What we're showing on the screen here, we actually wrote an article recently about a dashboard that's automated that we created to showcase universal analytics data side by side your Google Analytics 4 data if you're dual tagging, so you can see the comparison between the key metrics and aid in your migration or deployment of GA4 and ultimately your adoption by your organization of GA4, knowing that there will be some discrepancies for some metrics, that's expected, but a dashboard that actually can point which ones are differences or have variances so that you can have those conversations internally with your organization.
And this dashboard has been extremely impactful for, think about your C-suite, the ones that may be getting a very high level dashboard that they've been seeing for the past 2, 3, 4, or 5 years. Being able to showcase what's different, what's the same, and why those things are different has been really impactful for some of our clients.
All right, I'm going to end the poll and just share. It's almost a 50-50 split. That's very interesting. So 44% said yes, ready for prime time. 56 said no. So thank you for participating in that poll. It's very interesting. But Brad, I will pass it over to you for the pricing overview.
Thank you, Amin. I wonder if we would have frame the question, like, are you using GA4 as your source of truth versus ready for prime time? I have some follow-up questions for the poll audience, but thank you all for participating. All right, let's talk about the pricing piece. First and foremost, Amin, I want to get your point of view from a technical perspective of what you're seeing on the ground with our delivery teams and clients. One thing that I want to get out there is, first and foremost, if you're on an enterprise license today, Google is not launching this to say, oh, you can now drop back to a free, right? I mean, from the end of the day, GA4 free still doesn't have SLAs. There's some security concerns with it that we have showcased here. There's still limited sampling of where you can pass data, how much you can pass the data. And this gives you a very nice side-by-side comparison for organizations. Where I'm excited is I've talked with many organizations over the past 4 years since I left Google and joined Infotrust, that many organizations wanted some of these features, but they couldn't afford the enterprise product. The free product now offers some pretty interesting, unique features that I think open up for maybe those smaller mid-tier organizations that essentially wanted the enterprise, could not do that. So I think there's a variation there of like the product from a free standpoint and enterprise standpoint is just opening up more opportunities for organizations, not only in the way it collects data, but the way you can structure that data and connect with your other data sources. So Google has made a lot of product features, but I think also from their enterprise pricing model, many things haven't changed. We're going to get into some specifics that have changed with the packages. It's still based on tiers. But it's based on events per month versus hits per month. And this, as in any organization, as you're thinking about what's the right fit for you, again, if you're on enterprise today, it's more of how do I get over to the GA4 enterprise platform and make sure you have a successful migration. But if you're on Universal Analytics free today, this may be an opportunity to consider GA4 enterprise for your organization. And this just shows nice, I'm not going to go through each one of these, but I think some of the most important pieces here that we're hearing as you think about the free versus enterprise is one, the scalability part. So you can see BigQuery, export, analysis sampling, audiences. Those are very important for an enterprise, especially as more and more organizations are putting their data into Google's BigQuery data warehouse. They're structuring that and they're combining other data sources like their CRM, and they're really getting that single view of the customer and focusing on first-party data, right? That ties in a lot of things with privacy, cookies going away. The organizations that are investing in their first-party data architecture, how to really create that value exchange with customers are going to be the ones that are going to be very successful in the future of analytics and where all of this is headed. The other piece is SLAs, right? You want to make sure that from a paid product that you have the SLAs by Google that you should expect with an enterprise paid product. So those are two things that I'm seeing from a partnership standpoint. But Amin, what about from you and what you're hearing from not only our customers, potential customers, but really hands on the ground? What are you hearing from a technical perspective that's really a value here?
Yeah, definitely. I think the scalability and specific bullets here for like event data retention and the increase in conversions. I think some of those in the parameter differences, custom dimensions, metrics, really important for enterprises. Oftentimes they have more needs for those custom attributes, if you will. Though again, we're going through exercises to stress test, do we really need all of these dimensions and metrics in the migration or in transition to GA4? But still, often enterprises do need and have larger amount of data that they need to capture. The biggest thing though, I think that we're hearing excitement around are the SLAs, but the new SLAs that never existed before, such as the BigQuery daily export SLA. I don't have much details there. If anyone has questions yet, it's not launched yet, but it's coming, and we've been pushing and working with Google on that, and hearing it's very much still in process, but that has not existed before and led to a lot of pain of unknowing when the BigQuery data will appear, we'll say. There will now be an SLA for the daily export. I know that's really tactical, but a lot of our clients are really excited about that so that they know and have an SLA for when their data will appear in BigQuery to power all their downstream systems.
It's a great point. I mean, one of the other things I would add is support is not on here, but it's a very big deal, especially with this new product and the transition. So we have many clients that are on the free that we work with to help them make this successful transition, everything from implementation all the way to training the team, understand the UI. And then obviously enterprise, you have more of a direct line through your reseller and to help kind of file tickets with Google, any product particular issues, which is a big deal. As far as the pricing model, and I think this chart does a really good job of it, is first and foremost, the organizations, especially enterprise level, that were in a very massive hit count, it provides a little bit less of a price curve. So essentially the biggest complaint previously for Universal Analytics enterprise customers was, wow, if I'm at X amount of hits, I'm in this huge tier when I really want a closer breakdown. So it's not so straight up to the right. So there's a little bit more of a curve, which I think helps more advanced enterprises that have a ton of hits, which is now events. It also helps maybe a customer previously who could not make the minimum and give them an opportunity to play in the enterprise space as well. But a couple of things that are happening: lower minimum events per month. So as we know, Universal Analytics had that 500 million hits per month. That was the minimum. With GA4, you do have a lower minimum, which opens up opportunity. Second, as I mentioned, the pricing is more variable. So closer together in terms of volume of differences. And as the business grows, you're not necessarily charged linear, which is very much why we have this chart for you visual folks out there. This is an important one from a technical side, but events are not only counted in base properties that are tagged, but in websites and apps. Like the benefit of GA4 is now your websites and your applications are on the same data collection model, but you have to make sure you're factoring in app traffic. So what we've seen is organizations that have massive application presence and traffic, they have to be factoring that into their events per month, which historically, right, is a little bit different because you had hits on your website, you had Firebase, and it wasn't necessarily counted into your overall license. So it's just something, if you are very big on the application side, iOS, Android, make sure you're factoring that in with your partner and your reseller. What's really important here is Google's not going to double charge the reseller or you as the advertiser or client. So you can retain all of your GA360 universal features for up to 6 months when you move over to GA4 Enterprise. It is separate paperwork. But keeping in mind, you should make sure you're planning for incremental support. This is a big shift for your organization, for the marketplace, and there's a lot of learning to be had as well as implementation. So please don't go to your organization to say, hey, we have an opportunity to potentially reduce this and get back this. Like, this is a big investment, and you want to make sure it's successful for the future of your organization and how you understand the data. Moving on, real quick, Amin alluded to this earlier. We have a ton of migration guides, paperwork. Check out infotrust.com/resources. But this is our TETLT approach that many of our clients are using today. But it's not just the implementation of GA4 and what's different from GA4 to UA, but it's how do you take the right processes to make sure you implement your sites, but you also get your universal analytics data out so you can have comparisons year over year. You can understand what's different about event data collection versus hit level collection, and make sure you get that data in a side-by-side comparison into a dashboard of sorts. You can start to compare basic things like traffic to your sites, but then also more advanced things like conversions, et cetera. And finally, training. From my perspective, I'm seeing training as some of those things that people are just kind of putting aside. I think this is going to be a massive, massive training piece for the larger the organization, the more analysts that you have, the more important it is to get the value of GA4, because it is a very different UI and a very different way to look at your data, which provides a lot of incentive and advantages. All right, finally, we're going to wrap up. How to choose the right partner. Keep in mind, Google has a reseller partner network. We are one of those resellers. We're very thankful to be Google's partner. This gives you an idea, whether it's Infotrust or one of another Google partner. This gives you an idea of why Google leans on the partner ecosystem. Google helps you create platforms that reach billions of users. Partners like Infotrust help make sure you're utilizing and maximizing the value of the Google marketing platform stack. So it's just not just analytics, but how do you make sure you enable and activate your audiences? A couple things that, you know, if we're you and we're thinking about who's the right partner for us, a couple things to think about as we wrap up today. One, specialization. What's the partner's number one focus? All partners are great in this ecosystem, but everybody has a little bit unique specialization, right? Some partners are way more focused on media buying. At Infotrust, we're focused on, again, digital analytics. How do we help think about how data is collected from a privacy standpoint? How do we implement a first-party data strategy? That is our specialization and where we focus. So make sure whatever specialization it is, it fits with your business needs. The second, industry leaders. Are they in your vertical? Do they have expertise? Do they work with clients of your size? The third one, this is a very important one to me, is partner versus help desk. Is this some like 1-800 line that you have to call? Is this a ticket you have to file? Or do you have like humans that are meeting with you on a weekly basis? That's the approach we take, is every single week you have humans that are experts, not folks like me who don't know the technical side, but like actual folks that are in the weeds of the product and can provide those best practices, which leads to innovation. The reason we're doing server-side tests with organizations, thinking about consent management, we're doing cookieless tracking. Those are the things that we're innovating with our customers, because some of it's new. We don't have a solution necessarily, but we have a lot of thought leadership and learnings that we believe we're going to get there with our clients before anyone else on this true first-party data solution. And finally, resources. Yeah, it's great. GA4 implementation is important, but what about data engineering? What about data scientists? Make sure that they have the resources to take your organization to the next step, because transitioning to GA4 is step one. There's a lot of things coming and already here today that are going to be important to your organization. A couple of things, and don't forget about the little things. Here's a package we sent one of our clients. You know, they just had a baby. It's fun, but I think that's important, especially in this virtual. We're getting back into in-person, but very important for all of us. And Q&A, if you'd like to set up additional time, I know we're right at time right now, partnerships@infotrust.com. Again, this is not a sales pitch, I promise. This is going to be more understanding your pain, even if it's simple questions about what you need to do, the approach you need to take. We're here to help. Amin, thank you so much for joining me yet again. It is, if you weren't here, I don't know if anybody would join. So I appreciate you bringing your knowledge and expertise. And thank you all who join now and into the future. We appreciate it. Let us know how Infotrust can help. But thank you and best of luck on your transition to GA4.
Thanks, everybody.
Cheers.